Hello everyone, and welcome back into another Genshin Impact guide. Today we're talking about this really adorable bow user right here, Yoimiya, so let's get started. Alright, Yoimiya. She is a bow user, as we said before. She has a Pyrovision. Also, her essential stat is going to be crit rate, so building Yoimiya is much easier than other characters, since having crit rate innately by just leveling up is gonna make your crit rate, crit damage ratio much easier to build. And she focuses on normal attacks. Talking about those, it is a 5 consecutive shots combo with the bow, and the damage is going to be quite high all over the 5 hits. There's also 2 double hits on the first attack and the fourth one, and this is how they will look like. This is a double shot, normal, double, and then final arrow. And she also has a very cool animation with her first attack. If you interrupt the combo, she will do this little pose here, which is completely adorable. Moving on to her charge attacks, they are the usual ones where you just hold down your attack button and she will do this. But she will also spawn these little fireworks thingies, you can see, and those are called kindling arrows. Whenever you are going to shoot the arrow, this will aim toward the nearest target. That can be a plant, for example, or an animal, or an enemy, depends on whatever is closer to you. So when I shoot that, for example, in this case I hit this plant over here, which I think is a berry bush, and yeah, that's basically how it works. The damage on your charge attack is going to be 223%, while your kindling arrows will deal 30% each. Finally, we have the plunge attack that will deal a little bit of damage, but you're not gonna use this in combat, and this is how it looks like. You just plunge the ground, spawn a bunch of arrows, nothing crazy over there. Then we have her elemental skill, Niwabi Fire Dance. Whenever you activate this elemental skill, it will last for 10 seconds and the cooldown is going to start right away, the cooldown being 18 seconds. And your normal attacks will become blazing arrows that will deal 158.8% of your normal attack damage, but also converting your normal attacks into pyro damage, so you can only deal pyro damage for the 10-second duration. You will be able to keep doing charge attacks, but you will not be able to spawn kindling arrows, so keep that in mind. And this is how it looks like. You just activate it, you will have these 3 thingies floating around you, and you're then able to start shooting fire arrows. This will have a lot more damage, of course, as we saw, 158.8% more damage. And finally we have her elemental burst, Ryukin Saxifrage. Whenever you activate it, you will deal 204% damage underneath yourself, because she will be launched in the air, and after that all the enemies caught in the AoE will have this Aurus Blaze debuff applied to them that will trigger an explosion every 2 seconds, the explosion dealing 195% damage at level 8 as well. The duration of the debuff is 10 seconds, and you can activate this debuff by hitting the enemies. So whenever you hit them, and not with Yoimiya but all your teammates, just whatever, just hit them, they will take damage, and the cooldown of this burst is going to be 15 seconds and the energy cost 60, so it's quite easy to recharge. And this is how it will look like. You will trigger it, she will fly up in the air, and she will hit this huge AoE you saw on the ground. All the enemies caught in that AoE will take the debuff, and then you're able to deal damage. And also, if you defeat an enemy before the duration ends, the debuff will be passed to the closest enemy that doesn't have the Aurus Blaze already on him, and this will inherit the remaining duration of the debuff. Then we have her first passive talent, Tricks of the Troublemaker. This will increase your pyro damage by 2%, and this lasts for 3 seconds. It can stack up to 10 times per normal attack that hits an enemy, so you can activate this quite easily and max it out also quite easily, and this will give you basically 20% pyro damage without any effort, so it's a lot more damage you get for free. Our second passive talent is going to be Summer Night's Dawn. This will increase your party members' attack by 10% whenever your elemental burst is activated. So you can use your elemental burst, swap to your characters, and they will get 10% more attack, while also increasing the attack amount by 1% per stack of Tricks of the Troublemaker. If you have 10 stacks whenever you use your elemental burst, this will also give your party members an additional 10% attack damage bonus, meaning you'll get 20% attack bonus on all your party members. And finally, her special passive talent is going to be Blazing Match. This allows her to have a 100% chance to refund a portion of the materials used whenever you craft some furnishings in the Serenity Pot. So it's really useful if you're trying to customize your Serenity Pot, and it makes crafting and farming a lot less heavy. Moving on to weapons now, we do have some 5-star options. First of all, we have the Amos Bow and the Skyward Harp. These are both good options if you do not have any specific event weapons. The Amos Bow being great because it's a massive stat stick giving you a lot of attack and also increasing your normal attack damage by 12%, plus an additional amount that basically increases whenever your arrow stays in the air for longer. So the farther away you are from enemies, the more damage your normal attacks will deal. And that's really good for Yoimiya because she does like to stay in melee range usually, but the arrow will usually stay in the air for longer than 0.1 seconds, so you're gonna get a lot more damage bonus, and it's quite powerful. Skyward Harp is also an amazing choice because it gives basically crit rate and also a bunch of crit damage, while also dealing a bit of damage, that is physical damage, on the side, and it's quite an okay statistic as well because it adds a lot of base attack, and having crit rate and crit damage makes building your Yoimiya much easier. Then there's two other 5-stars that I do not own, one being the Polar Star. This weapon has a lot of base attack, gives you crit rate as a substat, and the passive it gives you 12% more damage on your elemental skill and elemental burst damage. This will not affect Yoimiya's elemental skill in particular, but it will still increase your burst damage. I'm not sure if it increases the explosions damage of the Blazing Aurum debuff, but I think it doesn't. And then also increases your attack whenever you do damage with your normal attacks, charge attack, elemental skill, and elemental burst. This attack bonus has a maximum amount of 48% that you get whenever you deal damage with all those 4. But in Yoimiya's case, you can only have 2 usually, thanks to your normal attacks and your elemental burst, so you can get 20% more attack at refinement 1, which is still something quite good. And this weapon, as I said before, gives you crit rate, which is amazing if you're trying to build Yoimiya, and it's gonna make building your Yoimiya much easier. And finally, the last 5-star option is going to be the Thunder Impulse. This weapon has also a lot of base attack, gives you crit damage as a substat, and the passive will increase your attack by 20%, while also giving you Thunder Emblems. You can get these Thundering Emblems, up to 3, whenever you do damage with your normal attacks, you activate your elemental skill, or your energy is less than 100%. So if these 3 cases are all active at the same time, you can get up to 40% damage bonus. If you have 1 stack, it's going to be only 12%, and at 2 stacks it's 24%. Each of the stacks has its unique duration, which is 5 seconds for your normal attacks, 10 seconds for activating the elemental skill, and the energy is less than 100%, has only that condition, so it can be active all the time. So yeah, those are the 5-star options. Moving on to the 4-star options. And for that, we do have a great craftable option, which is going to be the Hamayumi, which also looks great on Yoimiya. This weapon has an okay amount of base attack, gives you a lot of attack percentage as substat, also increases your normal attack damage by 16%, and your charge attack damage by 12%, which we do not care about. This amount will be doubled whenever your energy reaches 100%, which with Yoimiya is going to be quite easy, because her burst cost is quite low and it's easy to recharge. Then we have the Black Leaf Bow. This weapon gives you a lot of base attack, it gives you crit damage as a substat, and the passive will increase your attack by 12% for 30 seconds, up to 3 stacks whenever you kill an enemy, so it's quite easy to maintain unless you're fighting a boss, but it's still a very good weapon because gaining crit damage as a substat, it's quite good, and you can get it from the shop by using Masterless Star Glitter, so it's quite easy to obtain. Then we have probably the best 4-star you can give to Yoimiya, which is the one I'm currently using, which is gonna be the Rust. This weapon gives 510 base attack at level 90, increases your attack by 41.3%, and also increases the damage of your normal attacks by 80%, while reducing the damage of your charge attack by 10%, but since we do not care about charge attacks, this is basically just a free 80% more normal attack damage. It's a gacha weapon, so you're not guaranteed to get it, but eventually you will get at least 1 copy, and at refinement 1 it is 40% more damage on your normal attack, so it's still quite worth it, and it's gonna be an amazing statistic on your Yoimiya. And finally we have the Battle Pass option, which is going to be the Iridescent Hunt. This weapon gives you a lot of crit rate as a substat, the base attack is the normal one, 510, and also has a passive that basically deals damage to enemies in a little AoE whenever you hit them with normal charge attack. This has a chance to, as I said, proc this AoE that will deal 50% of your attack as damage to the enemies every 0.5 seconds for 4 seconds. This effect can only occur every 13 seconds, so it's not a reliable thing you can proc, but it's still a little bit more damage on the side you can do. It's not the best weapon, but gives you crit rate, which is a very good stat to have on a 4-star weapon, and you can get it from the Battle Pass, so if you want to buy it and you want Yoimiya as well, it's a good option. But for me, the Rust remains the best one to give to her. if you're talking about 4 stars. Let's now see what artifact set you can equip on Yoimiya. First of all, the best one is going to be the Sumero Reminiscence. This set gives you 18% attack, while also increasing your normal attack, charge attack, plunging attack damage by 50% for 10 seconds after activating your elemental skill. This will cause your elemental burst to lose 15 energy, so if you don't have 15 energy or if you have less than that, this buff will not be triggered. But if you do, well, that's a massive amount of damage you can get just by activating your elemental skill. If you do not have a good 4-piece Sumero Reminiscence, you can use 2-piece Sumero plus 2-piece Crimson Witch. This will give you 15% more pyro damage. You can even use 4-piece Crimson if you do have a good set, but it will not increase your damage by a lot, and probably having 2-piece Crimson and 2-piece Sumero or 2-piece Gladiator or 2-piece Echoes of an Offering or 2-piece Rebellion Hereafter is going to be better than having a 4-piece Crimson usually. Talking about the Echoes of an Offering, there's another good 4-piece set you can equip on her. This will give you 18% more attack with the 2-piece set, and the 4-piece set will increase your normal attack damage by 70% with a 36% chance. And it's not reliable, but it will proc quite often since it's 36% chance, and also the chance will increase by 20% whenever you do not trigger this effect, so it's alright. It's not the best set, I will say, because it's still RNG, but if you do have a good 4-piece set with nice substats, it's gonna be alright. As you can see, I went for Sumero because I do have a good set, and the stats you want to focus on are of course going to be crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, and energy recharge is a nice substat you can get, mostly because you want to have your burst active at least at the end of your elemental skill duration. That way it's easier to rotate Yoimiya out, give the attack percentage buff to your party members, and use their burst or whatever, and then go back to Yoimiya after your party members have done a lot of damage. For your sense, I suggest stick to attack percentage. This is the best thing you can give to her. Your goblet needs to be pyro damage. If you don't have pyro, just go for attack. That's the second best thing to have here. And as for your circlet, it's either crit rate or crit damage. And if you do not have crit rate or crit damage, stick to attack percentage. It's gonna be fine, but if you can, try and get crit rate or crit damage. Let's finally have a look at Constellations. Constellation 1, this basically increases Yoimiya's attack percentage by 20% for 20 seconds whenever you defeat an enemy that's affected by the Aorus Blaze debuff. So it's quite easy to trigger. Constellation 2 will increase Yoimiya's pyro damage by 25% for 6 seconds whenever she scores a pyro damage critical hit, and as it says here, it can also be triggered while she is not on the field. Constellation 3 gives you 3 more levels on your elemental skill. Constellation 4 decreases the cooldown of your elemental skill whenever the debuff you apply with your elemental burst deals damage through an explosion. Constellation 5 gives you 3 more levels on your elemental burst. And finally, Constellation 6 gives you a 50% chance to fire an additional arrow that will deal 60% of the original one, and this is also considered a normal attack, so it gets all the bonuses from all the buffs from like artifacts or weapons or passives. So yeah, if you have Constellation 6, I would say probably that Yoimiya becomes one of the best DPSs in the game. Alright, we've seen how to build her, let's now talk about her best friends. Okay, so a good team for Yoimiya is gonna basically have usually this setup over here. You have Yoimiya as your DPS, you have your secondary off-field DPS, you have your buffer or debuffer, and then we have Bennett, which is gonna be healer and buffer at the same time. You can swap out Bennett for another healer, but I do suggest stick to Bennett because he gives pyro resonance and also his buffs are just insane. I'm using Kazuha here as my Anemo support. You can of course go, for example, with Venti, you can even use Sucrose, you can use any other Anemo unit to debuff enemies through the Viridescent set. As for your off-field DPS, I'm using here Yelan, because sometimes I can proc Vaporize with Yoimiya, and that will deal a massive amount of damage, and also her elemental skill deals a very high amount of damage through Vaporize as well, so it's a very good combo they do together. And also she has a passive that increases the damage of the active character by 1%, and after that by 3.5% every second up to 50%, so it will increase my Yoimiya's damage even more. Another good character that can be your off-field DPS could be, for example, Xiangling, and that is because Xiangling has a very good Constellation 6 that increases your active character pyro damage by 15% during the duration of Pyronado, so it's a lot more damage you get that way. And also Guba will leave this pepper on the ground after he disappears that increases your attack by 10% for 10 seconds, so it's a very good buff you get that way. She also deals a lot of damage with her elemental burst, so it's a very good option, and you get her for free from the Abyss, so it's quite easy to get. Another variation could be having, for example, Raiden here instead of Yelan. That way you can trigger Overload. You can do that with Yoimiya as well. You can do that with Fischl, doesn't really matter. You can do Overload teams with Yoimiya quite easily since she's a bow user and she can hit enemies in the air very easily. So yeah, these are basically the teams you are going to see with Yoimiya. In terms of DPS, I think this is probably the best team you can use with Yoimiya, and that's what I'm gonna use against bosses and in the showcase. So yeah, have fun with that. I will see you after the showcase.
Driving me crazy just looking at it. Combing your hair with your hand gives me feelings I don't understand. Combing your hair with your hand gives me feelings I don't understand. You do this thing when you're biting your lip. It's driving me crazy just looking at it. You know me better than I know myself. Don't wanna live in a world without you. You do this thing when you're biting your lip. It's driving me crazy just looking at it. You know me better than I know myself. Don't wanna live in a world without you. You do this thing when you're biting your lip. But without you, driving me crazy just thinking. Driving me crazy just thinking.
Alright, so that was Yoimiya. As you can see, she is very powerful, she deals a lot of damage through her normal attacks, and her elemental burst doesn't deal a lot of damage, but it's actually still useful to buff your teammates. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more Genshin Impact and other games, guides and content, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!
Cold night in the winter, how it goes. Sorry that I fall away sometimes. Sorry that I fall away sometimes. Yeah, yeah. The end. Got to end it all on the weekend. Sorry that I feel that way sometimes. Sorry that I feel that way sometimes. Oh.